Hey there, welcome to today's episode. We are going to talk about the importance of selecting a niche, really defining your ideal client when it comes to growing your business online. I'm here with my super special guest, Uli Iserloh. He is the founder of Big Boost Marketing. He's one of the leading marketing minds in the integrative and functional medicine space. He advises many of today's leaders on strategy and tech implementation. Uli's patient attraction strategies are responsible for millions of dollars in revenue and have generated tens of thousands of patient leads, including multi-million-dollar online summits. After 10 years in the pharmaceutical industry, he founded Big Boost Marketing, an award-winning digital marketing agency specializing in automated marketing systems and Facebook advertising for health and wellness professionals. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Uli. It's a
Oh,
pleasure to
yeah.
have you.
Thank you so much for having me on this show. Again, you and I, we've been friends for a long time, so it's always good to connect and just chat about what's going on online and what are the best practices that entrepreneurs need to know this year and going forward.
Absolutely. So just before we hit record, we walked memory lane just for a second, and you reminded me that we first met in 2015 going through the ClickFunnels certification program. And, I met so many of my great friends and network professionals during that time. And I'm super glad that I did it, even if I don't necessarily use that in my business today. Are you still using that platform and using that knowledge that we got way back then?
Yeah, I think, for me, what stood out really as somebody that had his own web design agency, since 2000. So for essentially 15 years, I've been building websites. And then, I thought, well, what's the next big thing? And, what Russell really introduced was this concept of funnels. And, to a web designer, developer, it made intuitive sense. And that was sort of the aha moment that, for there, really niche down into funnels, and it's not necessarily the website. Anybody can build a website, but it's what happens between the website and actually the sale, whether
Yeah.
it's onboarding new patients or, e-commerce sales. There's a journey that needs to happen. It takes more than one touch point for people to go from no, not right now, to heck yes. And so how does this actually work? And so it really appealed to me that it has this combination of strategy, marketing psychology, knowing what moves people closer towards a sale.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And we have all this lingo and all these terms when we talk about funnels and strategies and all of this. And I've actually created a glossary of these terms because when I do my teaching for my programs, I just talk as as basic as possible, but I still use terms like lead generation, automation, funnels, all of this. And luckily, going through my programs, I have my students, they'll stop me and they'll say, "What exactly is a funnel?" And I love that question because it's one of those words that we hear all the time and we never stop to ask, what is that really? So it's really nice to be able to just break that down into just some simple terms that people can actually understand, and then understand more about how they can use them in their own business. Do you use funnels today as we were taught back then by Russell
Yeah.
Brunson himself?
Yeah, no, I think for me, this has always appealed to me, and I stay true to this. Maybe the nature of the funnels have evolved, but
Mhm.
even back then, when we had the first funnel hackathon, where there's like three business owners presenting their case, and everyone had to build a funnel around it. Everyone that I saw, I don't know what you were doing there, but they were jumping into just building the funnel, into the technology and the connecting. And for me, I just sat back, and I know you are very much alike, that you were thinking about, let's spend the first 4 hours just thinking about what's the strategy, who is
Yeah.
supposed to go into the funnel, what's their current problem, why would they even part with their email in the first place, what's the next thing that we need to teach them, and make this devoid of a push towards any sale. We don't want them to think about their wallet. We want
Yeah.
to get the email and the opt-in and what needs to happen. How do you go on a first date with your prospective clients? And then what's this relationship look like? What do you do on the first, second, third, fourth date? And how do you ascend that relationship that it feels comfortable, that it doesn't waste time? Obviously, a shorter funnel is better, but long enough that people get to understand why you're the authority person. They get to know, like, and trust you enough to ultimately part with their money. And so I think that is true for everything, and especially in my niche of functional medicine. When people don't even understand, consumers don't understand what is functional medicine. Why do I need to give the doctor money? You can't go with an offer because nobody understands what the offer is in the first place. So you have to educate. And I find this is incredibly stimulating because it really requires you to think about what's right for the consumer, and then just align this with what your goals as an entrepreneur are.
Yeah. So I love the idea of funnels, obviously. And I love the idea of strategy behind funnels, but honestly, none of that strategy matters unless you know exactly who you're talking to, right? So when
Absolutely.
you first started your business, especially whenever you started incorporating funnels, and because you weren't doing what you do now back then, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you were a
Yeah.
little bit, but you hadn't really chosen your niche, your
Yeah.
segment that you were going to be talking to. So tell me a little bit about who you first started serving and how you got to this point of really narrowing down. And I'm saying, people, he narrowed down to where if he's doing ads, I think he told me there's about 20,000 people in the entire United States that he can target. And that might sound like a lot, but it's really not a lot. Usually
Yeah.
we're running ads to millions of people at a time. And so I'd love to hear where you started, especially whenever it came to, did you have an ideal client when you started, an avatar, so to speak? And how did you get to this point where you have it so niched down, which I like to say you really niched down till it hurts, right? And so I'd love to
Yeah.
know how you got to that point where you got to that winning niche.
Yeah. So as I said, I started with web design in 1998, and this was in a time there was no tools. It was hard coding HTML in a text editor, and so this business came about based on what I knew how to do. And this is very similar to many other entrepreneurs. They essentially create a business out of what they already know, and so. The business comes first, and then they try to find out who's the audience that would need these services. So for the first 10, 12, 15 years, it was just web design, web development. I would work with anybody, banks, jewelry stores. I did a website for the CIA commander in the hunt for bin Laden. It's like
Wow.
churches, sales organization, political organization. It was all over the map. The only unifying thing was really the work that I did, build a website, build a good looking website. But it was so over the map, I couldn't build a team around it because I had to explain for each project, what is it that we're doing for this project versus the next one. And so there was no way to scale that business.
Right. No
And then,
system in place.
exactly. And so then in 2014, one of my first clients in the medical space was an organization that marketed to functional medicine doctors. And so this is where sort of the light bulbs went off, based on my background in the pharmaceutical industry. It felt almost like the story of Luke Skywalker. Here you work for the Empire, you're doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing with an approach that's just pushing pills.
Yeah.
And then here you're joining the rebellion, and now you're finding the good fight, and you realize this is what people really need in healthcare. And so there was like this emotional connection that I said, ooh, I love this. This really emerges. This makes for a good origin story where Uli works for big bad pharma first, and then
Yeah.
joins the rebellion, the underdog. And you know that you're on the winning side, you're on the right side of history with this move. And that's when I decided, you know what? I don't want to work with banks or jewelry stores or political organization. I just want to work with these doctors, and then really figuring out shifting my business model and not asking what can I offer that I know how to do, but go the other way around. If these doctors, what do they need for marketing? And then putting together an irresistible offer that contained components I didn't even know how to deliver.
Yeah.
Yes, we do Facebook ads. At the time, we didn't know how to do Facebook ads. So this got white labeled and offloaded to somebody else.
Right.
But I acknowledge that in the things that I'm selling, there could be things in this package that I don't even know how to do, that I rely on other people to add to the equation. But the customer doesn't have to know this. And the customer gets the easy button. It's one agency that they can work with that handles all these things. And so that was the genesis of niching down and deciding to just focus on this. And over the years, we just, weeded out all the other clients. And, unless you're an integrative functional medicine doctor, we're probably not going to work with you.
I think that's fantastic. And did you have any resistance when it came to that? Or was it like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, how did I not figure this out earlier?
Yeah. And I think on the one hand, it was really very obvious. Oh yeah, this makes so much sense intuitively. It's your intuitive home. You also see that there's a unmet need. It was like a blue ocean.
Yeah.
And even today, 5-6 years later, there's still no agency that really coming on this because it is so difficult. We tackled the most difficult problem there is, trying to sell something to consumers that don't even know what the product is or why they need the product. So we really start focusing on problem unaware customers, and we have to send them this entire awareness letter all the way to the top. And we're not just dealing with people that already know that they want the service, and we just make a transactional exchange.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fantastic. And it really does help you be able to be in a position to scale, right? Because you now have like replicatable systems to put in that you have in place, because everything you do pretty much is the same process. So it's not like back whenever you were working with a bank and then a jewelry store, like everything's so different with each one of those stores. So now, I mean, has your business just seemed to flow easier, or have there been their own challenges now that you have that niche?
Well, I think, you go through this entrepreneurial journey of hiring, you're hiring too fast, you may not hire the right people, and then you realize it's not the right people. Maybe it's the right people, but they're in the wrong role in the organization. So there is definitely a learning process when you grow to a team of 20, like we're right now. Who does what? What roles do we need? What do we focus? And, it's really, once you really hire a strong COO, a strong integrator, a second in command that can really translate your ideas into actual work, that things start to flow. And so, finding that integrator was really the critical milestone, that after that, everything went easier, because now I have somebody that knows what the mission is, why we need it, who needs to be doing what, and can orchestrate these things on your behalf. So that's certainly the first hire, whether it's a VA or an integrator, somebody that can help you take off the load and really move things forward. And then obviously grow into different areas. You have a salesperson, you have a CTO that deals with the tech, you have the project management functions, etc. So finding these people is definitely an art and science of itself. But once you have this in place, as you said, now we sell repeatable things. We have pre-made websites that come preloaded with content. And now the client just has to update the copy to tweak it unique to them. They just have to change the images to them. But it is now essentially a ready-made website. Same with funnels. We talked about this. We have probably 20, 30 pre-made opt-in funnels, ebook funnels with pre-written ebooks that we can give practitioners that they can customize, white label. We have paradigms for quiz funnels or appointment funnels or all these things.
Instead of having to start from scratch every single time when somebody needs something, it's all there ready and waiting for you and for your customers. So not only does it make your job easier, now you have this arsenal waiting to really impress and serve the clients that come in. So many times, especially when you are an agency or you're doing kind of one-off projects for different businesses, you don't have examples of what you can actually do, especially if you've never worked with somebody in that particular space. So you have really built out an impressive library that that your clients can see what they're actually getting, because you're in a space that they don't understand, right? So
Absolutely.
It's like this big like revolving wheel of like, well, you're helping them get people that don't know what they do to sign up for them, but you're also having to educate your people on what it is you do. Because if they're a functional medicine doctor, they're not in our world. They
Yeah.
don't have any idea about this stuff. And so many people are in that place. So it's very important if you are an agency, even if you're not ready for a 20-man team, which is completely fine. Even if you're just working solo, you still need to be able to take people through a journey and educate them on this whole world and what it can do for them. And I think sometimes people miss the boat on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can say this is 80-20 marketing rule that 80% of our marketing is automated funnels. So we have probably 15, 20 lead magnets for our own business. I don't care what lead magnet they're opting in, because all these lead magnets are focusing on cash-based health practitioners. So I'm very clear that the function of the lead magnet is not just to get the email, but filter out all the people that are not a good fit. So
Yeah.
if you're not a cash-based health practitioners, my lead magnets will not appeal to you. And so you're not opting in. So then all these lead magnets, they all go to the same welcome page. So they come to a welcome page. So I don't have to create a new welcome video or a new funnel. It's just, okay, they go to the same welcome page. Hey, thank you for requesting the resource. It's on its way to your inbox, but while you wait, let me tell you about our business. And so then
Yeah.
it feels like really practical, and I can whip up lead magnets very quickly. All I have to do is like add one more, fulfillment email on the back end that delivers the PDF or the video or whatever they opted in for. And then people go into a 10, 12 day
Mm-hmm.
autoresponder, but that autoresponder is the same for each and every lead magnet. So again, I have this infrastructure where for each new lead magnet, I just need a landing page and a welcome email, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the actual lead magnet. So this is where we found that content marketing really works very well. We put a lot of content on YouTube, on all social media channels, and every post has a content upgrade. You can opt in to go deeper with the right lead magnet. And again, when I write content now, I just think, okay, what's the most appropriate lead magnet that I can hook up to this? And then in the context of the post, it just feels very natural for people
Mm-hmm.
to go from consuming the content to opting in, and then they're on a tractor beam to be educated. And that's sort of the 80% of this automated marketing that happens, that's inherently very one-to-one. They're getting emails, they're seeing social media content, but there's not a lot of exchange. And so then the second part that we do is we add that personal component to it. And so that is, people add our prospect Facebook group, and then we do Facebook Messenger outreach. So, our team probably sends people 10, 15, Facebook messages over a course of 3 months to really build that relationship based on this. So they're really on two tracks. They're on the automated marketing track, and then they're on the personal follow-up track. And we find that ultimately all of our high ticket sales come from that personal track, that people finally start to ask the question, really, I need this, how can you help with this? And that leads to a strategy session and then a sale.
I think it's great that you have all of those lead magnets ready and waiting to go at any time. And the reason that they are successful is because they are speaking to the particular person that you're trying to attract, and you're likely solving a problem that they have in that lead magnet. A lot of people have a hard time that I work with creating a lead magnet or coming up with an idea for a lead magnet. And usually it's because they're not super clear on who the lead magnet is for. And that, honestly, it's one of the hardest things to do, in my opinion, is really determine who you want to serve. Because we typically, the people that I work with, especially, we have a big heart and we want to help everyone, but it's just not possible. And it is super scary to plant a flag somewhere and say, okay, I am only going to work with dentists. I am only going to work with, not only am I only going to work with dentists, I'm only going to work with dentists who do implants or whatever, right? You can niche down in your niche, which is what you did. You could say, I'm going to work with doctors. Well, no, you went deeper and deeper until you figured out who exactly you wanted to serve. And what's wonderful about who you chose also is that you could actually help them and get them really astounding results.
Yeah,
So
and I think this is the same for my clients, all these integrative and functional medicine doctor. They want to help everyone under the sun, and they can help everyone under the sun. But I always tell them the niching down is really something, a marketing lens to focus awareness and perception in a certain way. When they're in your practice, you can do whatever you need to do with them, help them any way they need to be helped. And that could be something that, they didn't even know they needed at that time. But I think really niching down, the reason why there's such resistance, I believe, to niching down is that people look at their current marketing, which is shotgun marketing. I work
yep.
with everyone, and they're looking at how hard it is to get sales. And they're sort of thinking, right now I'm getting 2.1% sales conversion. If I niche down and I keep the 2.1% the same, I'm not making any money. And I think what you're missing here is really that when you niche down and you actually speak the language of the person that you can help, your conversion percentage goes from 2.1 to 40.2.
Yeah.
It's a 20x thing. And suddenly, even though you have a smaller audience, you have now much more relevance, and people understand you're the only person in this space that does exactly this. Your track record shows it. Your content marketing shows it. I feel comfortable that you exit. So it's so much easier to convert somebody into a client because they understand they work with an expert. Again,
Yep.
if you're a doctor, think about, or you're a patient, think about if you have tennis elbow, who do you go to? Do you go to a generalist, or do you want to go to a chiropractor, or ideally go to a sports therapist, right? You
Yeah.
go with a specialist. And so the sports specialist has it so much easier to cure a tennis elbow than a general practitioner. So
Who
by
sees
going that
everything,
route,
who knows what they see all day long, right?
right? Or if you're a car owner, you're driving a Ford, and your Ford is broken down. Do you go to a Toyota dealership or to a Ford dealership, right?
Right.
So think about who your audience is, and it makes it so much easier that you don't have to push so hard to convince them that you're the one, because people want to work with specialists, not generalists.
That's so good. It's so good. It is, though, one of the hardest things for people to do, including myself. I've worked with different niches. One of the fears that I have, which I told you last time we spoke, was a fear of monotony. So if you're serving the same person and you have your system, which we all strive to have, the thing that you've built, right? This automation, this systematized, scalable agency, this business model. But does it get monotonous? Does it get like so mundane because you're doing the same thing sort of over and over and over again?
Yeah, I think I can totally relate to this. And, we have the luxury that because we have a big agency, we work on so many different projects that it's different niches. Yes, you're a doctor, but then we have eye doctors, we have rheumatologists, allergy, gut doctors, hormones. So, the content is always different. It's almost things like I work with retailers and e-commerce, but the products are always different. So there's always different challenges. Oh, this is a supplement product. This is a book. This is an information product. So there's different challenges, different funnels. And then again, in my case, when you work with high ticket offers, obviously their expertise is different. So you have people that have super high preeminence. They're nationally known. They're on national television. It's super easy to do something there, and that kind of funnel is probably a lot more advanced. And then you have a local person that is not known at all, and you have to sort of build up preeminence. So the marketing mix and the journey that you take them through is really different. And I think ultimately this is sort of like, if you're a parent and you're a child, just seeing your child blossom and making it work, and the child kind of has to figure it out on its own. You guide it along, but then there's this parental pride that's saying, yes, they managed to accomplish this, or they crushed their first webinar, or whatever else it is.
Yeah, I think having that ability to also hire the right support people, so you are only doing things that are really within your zone of genius. That to me is another big key when you're growing, even if you're looking at hiring a VA, like you said before, or just maybe a part-time support person to get you out of some of maybe the day-to-day operations so you can really focus on where your genius is. And so who is that? That was the COO for you, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we started out with a COO that's now my salesperson. And it was interesting. having the team, and in 2018, when the economy really took a turn, we had to sort of look, okay, does this really make sense? So we cut essentially our team by 45% and really removed the people that weren't working. And my wife said, your COO is an eye on the disc score. He likes to talk. That person should be in business development. Why is he not there? And I realized, oh my God, how could I not see this? We moved him there and he loves it now. I mean, this is like putting the right person. He was on the right bus, but in
Yeah.
the wrong seat. So
Yeah.
moved him into another seat and he's now happier than ever before. I'm happier because he's now much more productive and he really adds his unique angle to the company. And then moving people around, project managers, can they do the job? What is an ideal project manager for your company or an ideal VA? And then developers, and you grow the team. It always happens that you hire people, then you have to let a couple of people go, and then you
Yeah.
eventually sort of settle on who are the right people that deserve to stay. And it was really, when you have a weak integrator, when you have a second in command that's weak, it really affects everything in the company. So, I would say that is really the first person that you really have to think about that can make or break your entire company. And if you get this right, it's like a rocket ship taking off. It's amazing. And then you don't have to worry about the operational implementation of what you do, and you can remain the strategist, and the outward face of the company, being in marketing your own services. So that is super critical. And really, it has taken me probably 6 years to get to this point
Mm-hmm.
where my COO says, hey, you're doing stuff you shouldn't be doing. Why are you project managing this thing? Why are you getting your fingers dirty in the operational flow? You're not allowed to do this. So
Yeah.
my COO tells me that there are things that I'm not allowed to touch. And she's right. And, this is maybe me tinkering in other people's jobs, but, being really clear, this is what you're responsible for. This is what other people do. And then having the trust that those people can execute. And again, this is probably one of the other hurdles that stop people from hiring sooner than they should, is that they feel any person that I hire will not do the job as well as I am doing. And there's this perfectionist attitude. And there's some truth to it. They will never do it exactly like you do, although they may be better
It
than
might
you.
be
You never
better.
know.
That's right.
Exactly. But, even if that person were delivering 80% of your quality, you're the only person that knows this. Your consumer, your customer will not know the difference between 80% quality and 100% quality. So it's really just semantics. And
Yeah.
you just have to get over it that, yes, sometimes the wrong social media post gets out there, the link is not right or something. Stuff like this happened, but in a big scheme of things, by you micromanaging your team, you're really depriving them from, growing into the role, take responsibility. They need to know that it's on them. There's no,
Yeah.
there may be quality control, but by and large, it's on them to deliver quality. And there is no, COO that looks to everything that everyone is doing.
Well, and you'll find that if you do continue micromanaging or do try to be wearing every single hat, you're going to get exhausted and you're going to start maybe burning out or becoming frustrated. And it's not scalable, by the way. And sometimes that's okay. Maybe you aren't on track to want a scalable, sellable business. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if your intention is to grow and or scale, as we say, and then potentially get to a point where you could sell, which some people don't even know that's a possibility, but it's almost always a possibility. You're not going to get there on your own. It's just too much work. So how about that? Like, do you have the intention to grow something to be able to sell it?
Again, it's a hypothetical consideration. It could be. I think ultimately, as you said, the new business owner needs to have the certainty that this is a repeatable business. Let's say a dry cleaner. When you have a dry cleaner running, there's processes. It doesn't require the owner to be there. It's like, this is a system.
Yeah.
This is how it goes. And if the business makes X amount of revenue, you have these customer base built up, you would expect that month over month you could maintain or maybe even grow it from there, but it's a very safe bet. Now, when you look at your, agency or your business, if it's sellable, the future buyer is thinking, well, if that owner isn't there anymore, will the machine still keep running? Is it actually a machine with predictable, customer acquisition? Do you have figured out the advertising portion? Is the nurturing portion there? Is the sales process there? Is the product delivery there, so that they're buying essentially a machine? And I have
Right.
to say, going back to your point about you will run out of time if you keep doing other people's jobs. Recently purchased Craig Ballantyne's Millionaire's Morning training, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a super affordable training. But he said you have to focus on your unique 5%. What's the 5% that only you can do in a company, and everything else has to be somebody else's job? And when you go through his analysis, you realize, oh, I'm checking social media, or I'm doing this, or I'm leaking time here.
Yeah.
I'm doing customer calls that I shouldn't be doing. I'm leaking time there. I mean, when you tally this up, you'll see that you're leaking probably 20, 30, 40 hours a week in time that you shouldn't even have to spend. And so you have to really analyze in your business, what is it where I'm spending the most of my time that I can offload to somebody else? So ideally, you would think about the things that only happen once in a lifetime or once in a year, probably not worth outsourcing, because it takes you longer to teach this
Mm-hmm.
for the person to master it. And then a year later, they have already forgotten what you taught them. So
Yeah.
don't outsource that part. But when it comes to social media management, about, blog scheduling, or podcast production, or video production, or, Facebook ad management, all the things that keep happening all the time, that's somebody else's job, right?
Yeah.
You set the example. This is how it's supposed to go. You create these standard operating procedures. You train the VA to take care of this, and then it's out of your hair. And that is a great use of your time to train your VA, because ultimately you see that, okay, that if the person is trained up, they're saving me 20, 30, 40 hours a week. So it's a great trade of, time for money. But you also have to realize is that you have to train them. If the
Yeah.
job doesn't get done right, it's either because you have the wrong SOP and it's unclear, or you didn't train the person and you didn't give the right corrective feedback. It's rarely the fault of your VA
Yeah.
if things don't go right. If you explained it correctly and if it's bulletproof outline, then there's not going to be any issues.
So I know a lot of people, and I know we're not even talking about Avatar anymore, but there's a lot of people that get a little bit scared to bring in a VA because they don't know what to tell them to do. And they might not have, some scope of work for them to follow. But there are actually VAs that will help you create those scopes, right? So you don't have to do everything by yourself. But going back to the avatar, when you have that particular avatar ideal client defined, all of your processes are going to be that much easier to create and also define, even if it's done by you or a VA. It makes everything so much easier. So I know that number one tip would be choose an avatar, like to go down hard till it hurts. And from there, what are some other ways that what are some other advice, I'll say, that you could give some business owners to really find success in this coming year and beyond? So what are some other
Yeah.
nuggets that you've got?
So I think ultimately the two key ingredients for successful business is clarity on your avatar, and then having an irresistible product or service that is a match for that avatar. So these are really, connected. If you change your avatar, they will perceive an irresistible product differently than if you have another avatar. So this is not independent of each other, that you have one product and then one avatar. It's like, okay, if you change your avatar, think about, how do I have to change my product? How do I have to present it that it truly remains irresistible, that people can say, oh my God, I didn't even know this existed. This is exactly what I need. And so what I encourage practitioners, or entrepreneurs is like, what problem do you solve for whom, and get really clear on this.
Yep.
And just think about, you just have to represent 80% of the people in your business. There could be variants that you can work with other people, but think about what's the bulk of the services that you deliver, what's your most comfortable client, figure this out, and then really put yourself in that shoes and saying, how do you have to present your product so that the ideal avatar really says this is irresistible.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to have a funnel. You didn't need to have a website at that point. It's really just get on the phone with them and
Yeah.
pitch your products. And when I first started, one of my mentors said, Uli, you don't need a website. You don't need to all hard code all of this. Just get on the phone and present your services. And the first call, I went through the 3 things and it was crickets. It's like, nope, I don't want any of this. And then I said, okay, what else do you need? And then I said, do you do website management? It's like, oh, we do this. And so I realized what I was presenting as the ideal offer was not the ideal offer.
Yep.
So over a series of 5, 10, 15 phone calls, with every phone call, I changed my offer. And I just tried different shoes on. Does this work? Does this work? Until at the 15th call, everybody says, I love everything you want. I want all 3. At
Yep.
that point, I knew this is the irresistible offer that people want. And again, time doesn't stand still. So what was the irresistible offer in 2016 is obviously different what's in 2020 or 2021. And so this is, you have to sort of periodically evaluate this and see what is that perfect match. Because once you have these 2 points in place, then you can build the marketing bridge that takes the ideal avatar on the journey towards the product. And if they're opting in for the lead magnet, that's how they get on the on-ramp to that bridge that leads to your product. And then you just take them through the funnel. And so this is what you have to have in place: clarity on the avatar and the irresistible product or service for you to even start building that journey. And then again, as you are in your audience's shoes, think about what's the right way to be nurtured. What's too fast, what's too slow. You can't have in the first email pitch your $6,000 mastermind. Person doesn't even know who you are and what you do. So it feels like the equivalent of asking somebody on a one-night stand. It's like, okay, how do you get on a series of dates? And is 10 dates too much? Is 4 dates the right amount? You need to decide what the length of that nurture process is. For a lower price product, you probably need less nurture before you can pitch. If we're talking high ticket, $5,000 and above offer, you probably have to have a longer journey to get them comfortable enough for you to be the one. And then ultimately, the last piece of advice I give is that people ask, when do you stop your follow-up? And the answer is only if they die, if they tell you to stop, or they buy. Unless any of these 3 are true, you keep nurturing them. You keep going the extra mile. People will buy when they are ready, not when you want the money.
And it might be 4 years later. It can be so long after they opt in where you have given up. Don't give up.
Yeah, you just have to have your mission to serve the ecosystem. It's not trying to convince every single opt-in to buy from you. It's holistically just get 200 clients into the pipeline, and you will have a percentage of those that are ready at any given time. And then just keep nurturing, and you have a distribution of when people come on board. I have people that we did a strategy call with 2 years ago, and I said, you know what, you told me back then I should work with you. I didn't believe you. Well, I tried a million other things. None of them work. I'm ready to finally work with you. You will hear this
happens
all the time. And you just have to stay the course. And it can be lonely that he's like, why am I doing all this content marketing? Is anybody paying attention? Nobody is commenting, liking, sharing my post. But believe me, people are watching. And the most important part is really consistency. Whatever you do, just stay consistent. It doesn't have to be a daily blog post. It doesn't, do whatever frequency you want to do, but do it consistently. There's a saying,
set the mark and follow it every week.
It's like consistency carves canyon. If you wonder why the Grand Canyon looks the way it does, it was just relentless over millions of years, erosion that created this. And, same for business. Your current success is probably reflective of what you did a year ago. So, once you see sort of things, improving, it's probably because a year ago you changed something in your marketing approach that really created this. Maybe you got more leads. Maybe you got more clarity on who you work with. But, there's sort of a lagging indicator that it probably takes 8 to 12 months for those long-term effects to really manifest in your business bottom line, that you can see, oh, this is working. So don't take the short-term view. Trying a week of podcasting, it doesn't work. It's like, you've been doing
or a
million
YouTube video
episodes.
and you didn't get any views on that one, so you're just not going to do it anymore. Like, you can't operate that way.
And so this is where, going back to the niching, you got to pick a niche that you're excited about. You're going to be
Yeah.
talking about that niche for 6 years. And so if you're really bored in half a year about this topic, oh, not again, probably not the right niche for you. There's people choose niches based on, can I make money there? But they don't love what it is. It's just,
It is important that your niche has money to pay you. I will say
I'm
that
not
is important
saying
when you're
that,
choosing the avatar, but yes,
but you have to have that passion, that purpose
absolutely.
behind it. Just like for me, when I switched into healthcare, a light bulb went on, and I can talk about this at any length. I mean, in our household, F is the bad word for funnels. When a guest comes on board and say, "What's a funnel?" And then my wife goes,
No,
"No."
don't ask that. It's all right though. I mean, people really are genuinely interested in how can they use these strategies and tactics in their business. One thing you said earlier was you don't need a website. You don't need a funnel when you're starting out. And it's really important. I teach this all like consistently, to sell first, then build. If you build first and then sell, just like you getting on the phone with your prospects, offering them something they didn't want it. Just think if you had built out an entire sales funnel or course or something about that particular topic or offer, and nobody wants it. So that's why it's really crucial to follow the process of selling it first and then building it out. And then the tech can come later. We're just really told that the tech is first, right? But uh, tactics without strategies behind them are just futile. There's
Yeah,
no point. Those are all tactics, funnels,
yeah,
websites, all of that. And another reason I think that people are so leery of maybe getting in front of people or talking to them on the phone is that we've been told that we can basically be keyboard warriors these days and just build something online and sit back and let it rake in the dough. And that's just not how it works. Sometimes I wish it was how it worked. It'd be so easy to just punch a couple
yeah.
of keys and make some money, but you really do have to nurture relationships, build community, and really talk to the people that you're serving so you can serve them at your highest potential and fix whatever problem that it is they have. And that's not going to be done by just having a website and hoping people land on it. Those phone calls, that outreach, kind of old school marketing tactics is what works best, especially at the beginning. And I think people are just really afraid
Yeah.
to do it.
I certainly, and it's funny, as a marketing technologist, you and I, people assume that we think tech always, but I say tech is essentially 10% of the big
Yeah.
piece. The rest is really thinking through the journey. Why is this funnel even going to work? So spend most of your time on the blueprinting and mapping it out and then validating in the cheapest and fastest way possible if you're right. I mean, I made the mistake in 2014 that I built out a whole funnel. My wife won't let me forget it. 1,000 hours of her work went into it. We sell 2 copies of a
Yep.
$497 product. I mean, if you calculate the hourly rate, it's like 2 cents an hour. And that was really, it's like, okay, you need to sell first. You need to see that people are willing to give you money before you build it out. And so that applies to seed launches, how you launch online
Yep.
courses, just make the sales page and have an outline, see if people give you money, then deliver the first version live. This applies to pretty much everything else, where you have to first validate that it's there. And for some niches, social selling works. There's entrepreneurs out saying it's like, you don't need a website. All you need to do is a good strategy on Facebook,
Yep.
and Facebook Messenger, you can make all the sales. And if the product is germane to that, if it appeals to
The right
the right
person.
generation, then
Mm-hmm.
it works. But for instance, if you work as a doctor, your patient is not going to buy off just a Facebook Messenger campaign. They want to see that you're legit because they entrust their health in there. So
Yep.
depending on who your avatar is, what kind of entrepreneur you are, you may have to get ultimately a website that really reflects what needs to happen. But even with a website, I always say, Don't focus the website just on selling your service. This is like just capturing 2 or 3% of your website visitors. Just focus on the people that are on the fence. And the people that are ready to buy, they will figure out where the sales button is, how they can check out. Just focus your attention on the people that could become buyers in the next 30 to 90 days. Nurture them, and that way you increase the effectiveness of your website from probably only serving 2% of your audience to serving 40% of your audience.
Yeah, I love it. What would be maybe a big takeaway or a big tip to share with people as we wrap up here about just really finding that sweet spot in your niche, really niching down? What would you tell people that are just really having a hard time with that?
Yeah, I think, there's a couple checkpoints that you have to go through it, and in no particular order. Are you passionate about it? Can you see yourself talking about this? And this is mostly about you. Next, is it viable? As you pointed out, are people paying money for these type of services? Are there competitors out there? You do want to be in a niche where there's competitors, because if there's no competitors, it could mean there's no money to be made. And, so you want to have that prior assurance that, okay, people are already spending money on something similar to what I'm selling, so this is good.
Yeah.
Then you have to think, is it scalable and deliverable? Again, you don't want to be the entrepreneur that has to fulfill everything on yourself. So is the process that you're selling, can you have a team behind it that can fulfill this? Doesn't mean you have to have that in place right now, but ultimately, as the business grows, you can be the technician fulfilling this and creating the widget. So is it scalable, fulfillable? Can you turn this into an operation?
Yep.
And then the last thing is really, who is the audience? Is there an audience for this problem that you're solving? So again, that's now about the customer. What's the market size there? And so again, we talked about at the beginning that my audience is probably total of 20 or 30,000 practitioners in the US. If I were to reboot this, maybe I would focus on something where there's 4 million dentists in the US and there's databases of dentists making $2 to $3 million a year. And that would be probably a much easier audience, because a lot bigger, a lot more affluent, already spending money, already have a business of $2 to $3 million. So these are all considerations that you have to run through, and you have to sort of see how can you best score in all of these areas, that ultimately you find that sweet spot intersection of all of these things that then help you build the business.
I think those are all really fantastic tips. The big one is there an audience? And I'm going to add in, and do they have money to pay you? Now, It's wonderful to be able to serve people. I have clients that I've worked with that they have programs that help people that are homeless, right? Or maybe struggling financially. Those are more passion projects, so to speak, and not really there to build up this mega, empire or agency or course platform, right? And so it's okay if you have ideas and you want to serve people that potentially don't have the funds to pay you, but you have to make sure that you have a business somewhere in there that you are getting paid for your knowledge and your expertise. You have to have what Sean Cannell says, money for the mission. Okay. And while, yes, we want to help as many people as possible, we're not out here only talking about money. We're not, income centric, but we do need money to continue doing and serving the people that we're meant to serve. So it's okay to talk about money. It's okay to want money and it's okay to ask for money in exchange for your services. And I think a lot of people get hung up on that. And then, but also in selecting their niche, they aren't thinking in those terms. They're not thinking like, well, is somebody actually going to pay me for this? I see a lot of people potentially going after teachers, for example. Well, it's really hard to sell a 5-figure package, like a multiple $1,000 high ticket offer to teachers. We all know that teachers are underpaid. They don't have a big budget to work with, and they're not necessarily going to go to that level. You might have a small percentage that are willing and ready, but you just really have to think about who you want to serve and how you're going to be serving them. And like you said, the getting clear on that avatar and then creating just that irresistible offer that they will actually pay you for. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where part of the equation is really, do they have the money? This is really critical, because when you are pricing your services cut rate where you're barely breaking even, there's very little margin for error on your behalf. If something goes wrong, it comes out of your pocket and you're losing money. And when you sell, you have the ability to add a couple $1,000s in profit to it. When you have money, you don't have problems, because you can always buy yourself out of the problem. You can hire more people, you can hire more services, more consultants. There's a solution that you can buy, and that lets you sleep at night. And so for us, when we first launched, we underpriced ourselves grossly, and it was very stressful as a CEO to pay the team and keep the lights on, and make sure that the wheels are not coming off all the time. And it's only once we added an extra $5,000 in average cart value to it that I could finally sleep calmer, because I knew, okay, we're making more profit, I can hire more people, I can have somebody else fix the problem for me. And again, this is really important when you start a business, or when you go in a niche, that you have the proper pricing. There's nothing wrong, again, as you said, money for the mission. It's so critical. And these are some of the things that you learn hopefully in time before you go out of business, because this is a critical lesson for me, that you need to make money, and you have to price this accordingly to actually keep this running and make this a business.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. We have so many things that we could continue talking about. And so I definitely want to ask you to come back and give me some more of your genius as it comes in with building up this really successful agency. Before we wrap up here, though, how can people find you, and who do you want to find you?
Yeah, I would say, we have a lot of marketing materials on our website at bigboost.marketing /free guides that, work for any expert entrepreneur. If you sell your expertise, if that's how you make money, it's helpful. But we love to work with cash-based health practitioners. And so, if that's you, whether you're a health coach, you're a nutritionist, you're a doctor, you have a clinic, stem cell clinic, whatever it is, we'd love to hear from you and see what we can partner on, if that's what makes sense. And online, I'm at Uli Iserloh on Instagram, Facebook, and wherever else one should be. So follow me there. And again, thank you so much for having me on the show. I know we could spend hours talking about this, and you and I are very much alike how we think, and so always great time spending with you.
Thanks so much, Uli. I'll be making sure too that all the links that to get in touch with you and to find you online will be added to our notes, so everybody will be able to access those and follow you. You are a genius. Even if your avatar is functional medicine doctors, you still have a lot to share, and people of all all industries can really learn a lot from you and what you've done over the years. So I appreciate you coming on here today with me and sharing some of that genius with us, and I can't wait to have you back again. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't done that already. And if you'd like to check out more of our videos, go ahead and just tap the screen right here.